As the world tried to make sense of Chris Watts' monstrous confession, another name began surfacing in online forums, headlines, and detective reports. Nichol Kessinger, the woman Chris was willing to murder his entire family for. But what made people truly suspicious wasn't just that Chris had a mistress. It was how Nichol reacted, what she deleted, and what she searched for before the murders happened. Nichol Kessinger was a 30-year-old geologist working with Anadarko Petroleum, the same company where Chris Watts worked. According to her, they met in late May 2018 when Chris visited her office. He told her he was in the final stages of a divorce. A lie. Their relationship escalated quickly. Within weeks, they were going on dates, cooking dinner together, and sending explicit texts back and forth. Texts that detectives would later recover, despite Nichol deleting them. After Shanann and the girls were reported missing, Nichol saw the story on the news and Chris's face. She was horrified. She immediately contacted authorities on August 15th, the same day Chris failed the polygraph. She told them, "I had no idea Shanann was pregnant. He told me they were separating and she was moving out." She claimed to be in shock and fully cooperated with law enforcement. But as detectives dug deeper, things got murky. Nichol admitted to deleting all of Chris's contact info from her phone just days after murders. She cleared her browser history. She wiped her text thread with him completely. And yet, investigators recovered nearly everything. What they found raised eyebrows. Nichol had Googled, "Can police trace text messages?" "Man I'm having an affair with says he's leaving his wife. How long do phone companies keep text records?" She even Googled Amber Fry, the mistress from the Scott Peterson case, another infamous family murder where the husband killed his pregnant wife. And this was before Chris was arrested. Between August 11th and August 13th, while Shanann was away on her business trip, Chris and Nichol were still texting and calling. On August 13th, the day Shanann and the girls were murdered, Nichol searched for wedding dresses online. Later that same day, she did multiple searches for Shanann Watts. Detectives asked her about this. Nichol claimed she was just curious, concerned. She said something didn't feel right, but investigators weren't entirely convinced. Nichol sat down for multiple recorded interviews with the FBI and Colorado Bureau of Investigation. She appeared nervous but cooperative. She said Chris had seemed off in the days before the murders. He kept saying he had a lot to do, that his life was chaos. He was short with me, not like himself. She even told investigators that she had questioned whether Shanann was really moving out. When pressed, she insisted, "If I had known that he was going to hurt anyone, I would have stopped it. I didn't know anything." When the full details of the case became public, the internet turned against Nichol. Online sleuths accused her of being involved. Some believed she manipulated Chris or pressured him to start a new life. Others claimed she must have known Shanann was pregnant and simply didn't care. Despite no criminal charges against her, Nichol Kessinger became one of the most hated women in America overnight. She had to go into hiding. She changed her name. Her social media accounts were deleted. She moved out of Colorado and has stayed off the grid ever since. In the final days before the murders, Chris and Nichol exchanged dozens of texts. He told her he was excited for their future. He talked about finding an apartment, starting fresh. After the murders, she texted him once more, "I'm so confused. Why aren't you texting me back?" She then searched Google for, "Did people hate Amber Fry?" Legally, Nichol Kessinger was never charged. Authorities found no direct evidence that she had any involvement in the murders or that she knew Chris planned to kill his family. But emotionally, the public was never satisfied. The search history, the wedding dress tabs, the deleted messages, the eerie parallels to Amber Fry, it all added up to one chilling question. Was she just a mistress? Or was she something far more dangerous? After receiving 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, Chris Watts was moved to a maximum security prison far from Colorado. Initially placed in Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, Watts was kept in protective custody, away from the general population, for his own safety. But isolation didn't mean silence. Behind bars, Chris Watts found a way to keep talking, and what he said in letters to strangers revealed for the first time in 2019, was more disturbing than anyone expected. In early 2019, a woman named Shanann Cato began corresponding with Chris Watts. She was a writer working on a book about his case. Over time, Watts opened up to her in multiple letters, each one more chilling than the last. In one letter, Chris wrote, "August 13th was the day I died, not just because of prison, but because I murdered my entire family." But what shocked even seasoned investigators was that Chris admitted to lying even in his original confession. He had withheld the darkest part of the truth. Contrary to earlier claims that the murders happened in a fit of rage, Chris admitted that he had planned it all. "I thought about it every day for weeks," he wrote. "If I had not met Nikki, I would have never killed my family." He admitted to giving Sean an oxycodone in an earlier attempt to cause a miscarriage. He admitted to looking up songs about murder and loss before the killings, and he claimed he tried to talk himself out of it. But something dark inside him refused to let go. Behind bars, Chris claimed he was haunted by dreams of his daughters. In one letter, he wrote, "Every night I hear Bella's voice screaming, 'Daddy, no.' I hear it in my sleep. I see her blue eyes staring at me. It's punishment I deserve." He described dreams where Celeste runs from him, and Shanann appears crying, holding baby Nico. He said he sees him in his cell, standing silently in the corners. Whether hallucination or guilt, something was chipping away at him. Chris claimed he had found God behind bars. He began reading the Bible daily, attending chapel, and writing about his newfound faith. He quoted scripture in his letters and told Shanann Cato, "I feel like God has forgiven me. I hope one day the world will too." But many found the timing suspicious, especially considering he had lied repeatedly before. Some saw it as another manipulative tactic. Others questioned his sincerity entirely. As Shanann later revealed in her book, even she became uncomfortable with how easily Chris shifted blame. Sometimes to Shanann, sometimes to evil forces, rarely to himself. Chris lives in segregated protective custody, meaning he's alone in a single cell for 23 hours a day. He's allowed 1 hour of recreation, always separated from other inmates. He has no access to internet or social media. His food is delivered through a slot in the door. He spends his time reading, journaling, and writing letters. He's forbidden from speaking with the media. But that hasn't stopped him from building a network of supporters, especially women. Even after confessing to murdering his pregnant wife and 2 daughters, Chris Watts receives fan mail from women across the U.S. Some letters include photos, love notes, and even proposals. Chris has responded to a select few, describing his favorite foods, his daily schedule, and his desire to be understood. In one letter, he told a woman, "I'm not the monster people think I am." That single sentence lit another firestorm online. To this day, people debate whether Chris Watts feels genuine remorse or whether he's just continuing the manipulation from behind prison walls. His letters reveal a man who is obsessed with himself, one who rewrites history in every draft. In one moment, he's a grieving father. In the next, he's blaming Shanann. In the next, he's asking for forgiveness. But the one thing he never seems to do is fully own the choice he made to strangle his pregnant wife and then smother his children one by one. According to forensic psychologists, Chris Watts fits the profile of a covert narcissist, someone who hides insecurity and rage under a calm, friendly surface. Experts say he lacked empathy. He suppressed rage for years. He fantasized about a new life, and when reality didn't match fantasy, he erased the obstacles. One profiler put it bluntly, Chris Watts didn't just kill his family. He tried to rewrite their existence. August 16th, 2018. Weld County investigators, cadaver dogs, and FBI forensic teams arrived at a remote Anadarko petroleum oil site known as Server 319. They had coordinates. Chris Watts had confessed just hours earlier, saying he had buried Shanann in a shallow grave and placed Bella and Celeste into 2 separate oil tanks. Even with that admission, officers were not prepared for what they were about to uncover. This wasn't just a disposal site. It was a calculated execution ground. Server 319 was located nearly 45 miles from the Watts home, deep in rural Colorado. Chris had worked at this site many times before. It was remote, quiet, and completely unmonitored in the early hours of the morning. He'd chosen it for one reason, to erase them, but he failed. At the edge of the site, cadaver dogs began alerting immediately. First, near a dirt patch beneath a mound of weeds and rocks. Then near the two large 400-barrel oil tanks, towering like silent tombs under the open sky. The first discovery was Shanann's body, buried in a crude, shallow grave just inches below the surface. She was still wearing the tank top and underwear she had on when she returned from her business trip. The grave was so shallow, parts of her body were visible through loose soil. The scent of decomposition was overwhelming. Next to her body, investigators found a fetal sac, the remains of baby Nico, the son she was 15 weeks pregnant with. But it was what lay inside the oil tanks that horrified even the most hardened officers. Each tank had a small 8-inch hatch on top. Inside, a mix of toxic crude oil and gas fumes that could destroy DNA, strip skin, and dissolve tissue. Chris had placed his daughters there. He admitted to dropping them in while they were still wearing their pajamas. One tank held Celeste, the other, Bella. The recovery process was complex and dangerous. Oil technicians and forensic experts had to shut down tank pressure systems, carefully drain the crude oil, lower retrieval tools into thick, black sludge. The bodies were partially submerged and badly decomposed due to chemicals and heat inside the tanks. Investigators were able to recover tufts of long hair, tiny pajamas, and, most heartbreakingly, deep bruising on the girls' mouths and necks. Autopsy reports would later confirm. Bella had fought for her life. Celeste had died more quickly. Weld County Coroner's Office conducted full autopsies on all 3 victims. Key findings. Shanann died from manual strangulation. Bones in her neck were broken. She had defensive wounds, showing she tried to fight back. Celeste died from smothering. No internal injuries. Likely died while in the backseat of the truck. Bella's autopsy was the most haunting. She had bite marks on her tongue, bruises around her jaw, and signs of struggling. She was awake. She knew, and she begged. In Chris's later prison confession, he admitted something that shattered the hearts of every investigator. As he smothered Bella, she looked at him and said, "Daddy, no." That sentence was burned into the minds of every law enforcement officer who worked the case, and now it burns into ours. Chris told investigators he placed his daughters in the tanks because he didn't want to look at them again. He thought the oil would disintegrate them. He believed no one would find them, but he was wrong. And even in death, Bella and Celeste spoke louder than he ever could, through the bruises, the fibers, and the evidence he tried to drown. When news broke that the girls were placed in oil tanks, the public exploded in anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. True crime community psychologists and even prison inmates called Chris Watts monstrous, beyond evil, the worst kind of coward. The image of 2 tiny girls inside tanks meant for industrial waste became a symbol of pure betrayal. And even those who had studied murderers for decades struggled to explain it. He knew it well. He knew how to access the tanks. And he knew no one would come looking there, until he confessed. But what's more disturbing is he still went to work that day. After disposing of his family, Chris sent a normal work report, texted co-workers, and acted like nothing had happened. Cold, robotic, disconnected. That was the man the world had once mistaken for a loving husband. After the world learned the truth about what happened to Shanann Watts, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico, most people recoiled in horror. But in the darkest corners of the internet, something far more disturbing was happening. Chris Watts was becoming a sex symbol. From a moment Chris was transferred to Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, letters started arriving in the mailroom. Not letters of hate, love letters. Hundreds of them, from women across the United States, and even around the world. They wrote about how they felt a connection with him, how they believed he was misunderstood, how they could be the ones to heal him. Some included photos of themselves in lingerie. Others included poems, drawings, and even cash. One woman wrote, "Chris, I don't care what anyone says. I believe you have a good heart. You just lost your way." Another said, "You're my soulmate. I've never connected with anyone like this before, not even my husband. One even offered to marry him. And in the letters he wrote back, Chris flirted, responded warmly, and played the role of a reformed man of faith. God has forgiven me, he told one admirer. Maybe one day the world will too. Criminologists and psychologists have a name for it. Hybristophilia, the attraction to someone who has committed outrageous crimes. This condition is rare, but very real. Women who write to serial killers or murderers often feel empathy for them, believe they see the real person inside, are drawn to their notoriety and danger, or feel a sense of control and emotional safety because a man is in prison and can't hurt them. On Facebook, Reddit, and YouTube, entire communities sprang up with names like Chris Watts is innocent, Free Chris Watts, the Chris Watts redemption arc. Some women posted deep dives claiming Shanann was controlling and that Chris had snapped under pressure. Others posted manipulated videos claiming Shanann faked her pregnancy or that the children had already been gone. All of a conspiracy nonsense. Even more disturbing, some of these groups attacked the Rzusek family, Shanann's parents, and accused them of lying, forcing them to issue public pleas for privacy. According to Colorado correction staff and leaked reports, Chris's mail volume quadrupled between 2019 and 2021. He received fan art, Bibles with highlighted verses, photos from women posing seductively, requests for interviews, and sometimes letters from multiple women fighting over him. He wrote back to a handful, particularly those who presented themselves as religious, submissive, or sympathetic. In one response, Chris wrote, "I see now what love really is. I never had it before. Maybe this is God's way of giving me a second chance, not in life, but in spirit." When the Netflix documentary American Murder, The Family Next Door, was released in 2020, Chris's case exploded in global recognition. Overnight, his name became a top search term on Google. YouTubers gained millions of views analyzing his body language. TikTok creators made dark edits romanticizing him. And his prison photos were circulated like celebrity headshots. The line between justice and obsession blurred. Chris Watts, a man who strangled his pregnant wife and smothered his daughters, had become true crime clickbait. And, unbelievably, a crush for some. In 2021, Shanann's family broke their silence in a heartbreaking interview. "It's disgusting," her father Frank said. "These people, they make excuses for a man who murdered his own daughters." The family begged the public, especially YouTubers and podcasters, to stop glorifying Chris, stop monetizing his story, and stop pushing conspiracy theories. But the flood kept coming, because in the twisted world of internet fandom, even monsters get mail. Chris Watts will spend the rest of his life behind bars. He will never be eligible for parole. But somehow, he still holds power, not over his victims, not over his family, but over those who continue to obsess over him. Women send him money. Strangers write him prayers. And his name still trends every time a new detail emerges. Chris Watts didn't just commit murder. He destroyed an entire future. A wife who trusted him. 2 little girls who adored him. An unborn son who would never take a breath. And yet, from behind concrete walls, he still finds a way to reach the world. Through letters, books, videos, and headlines. The Watts case didn't just horrify America. It changed how we talk about family annihilators, true crime fame, and the women who fall in love with killers. Chris Watts was not a man who snapped. He was a man who planned. He used his charm, his quietness, and his nice guy image to hide something monstrous. And the scariest part? For months, no one suspected a thing. In memory of Shanann Catherine Watts, Bella Marie Watts, Celeste Catherine Watts, Nichol Lee Watts, may their memory never be overshadowed by the man who took them.